Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today I want to talk about why I traded my 2015 Yukon Denali for a 2021 Toyota Sequoia. This was a very hard decision. I think the Yukon's a much better looking SUV. The Yukon's also more powerful at 420 horsepower compared to the 380 one for the Sequoia. We really enjoyed it over 5 years. We bought it with about 51,000 miles on it. And it really did a great job as a family vehicle with a lot of creature comforts. It's very good looking. It's very powerful, 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet. It did an awesome job with towing as well. And I have a lot of videos on this, and I'll put the links to them in the video description. So I think GM really did their homework on a lot of things with it to make it a really good family SUV. However, the parts that they used was the main problem. Going inside the cabin, it was perfect. It was comfortable. I didn't really have any glitches or problems. It had four-wheel drive, trailer brake controller, and lane detection, blind spot detection, everything like that worked really well. The DVD system worked perfectly. You could control that and the climate and everything from the front. I especially liked how you had anchors on all of the seats for your car seats, not just some of them. So some of these things I would lose by going over to the Sequoia. Now, the Yukon was redesigned in 2015 and looks like this for this body style with a huge update. The Sequoia, on the other hand, has been the same since about 2008. I had also purchased the Yukon Denali specifically because it came with the 6.2 liter V8, which was a little more horsepower. It was the shorter version, so it wasn't the XL, so I can't complain about the size difference, but the Sequoia kind of meets in the middle between the XL and the regular Yukon. Now, I know it is a used vehicle, and all used vehicles will have parts that wear out, but the problem with the Yukon was even at 50,000 miles, which is relatively low, everything started going wrong with it. And so I have a full playlist I'll put in the description, and the wear and tear items I expect, like a battery change, an occasional alternator or some suspension, but every time I turned around, I was having to do expensive repairs on this. The struts have to be the Magna Ride replacements unless you delete all of that. But along from the wear and tear items, what really bothered me was things like the transmission harness. I had to change it because the temperature sensor was bad. The tail lights, which is a huge thing, were $800 each. I have videos on how to repair them and then replace them, and now there's other options out that are Chinese made and a little more affordable. But there were so many small things, the antenna on top, but there was one nail in the coffin. The last straw was probably the lifters. And so when the lifters went out, the problem with that is a huge job. That means the heads have to come off. It most likely has torn up the camshaft. And so this is a problem for me because it's not that I don't mind wrenching on cars, but to have to do this as a family car just made it so much more difficult for me. In fact, it was so bad that I even had to go buy a Toyota Tundra just so that my family had something with air conditioning reliable for the dead heat of the summer. So I chose Toyota because they don't seem to change or update things very often, but they do that for a good reason, and that's so that it's reliable. When it works, it works. They don't do cylinder deactivation or any gimmicks to try to make it get better gas mileage. They say you're buying a truck, you get a truck. You get bad gas mileage, but you get reliability. And with a family, that's what was more important to me. And so again, I know that all vehicles will have their issues, but the Yukon continued to have problems where I would have to recharge the air conditioning system, and just every little thing on it was breaking, where Toyota uses incandescent light bulbs instead of LED panels for the tail lights. Everywhere you look, it's just a more simple design, and if it does break, it's going to be a lot easier to fix. So because I did love the Yukon for everything else that it did right, I was thinking that I would buy this Tundra, get us through, and then have the Yukon back on the road as soon as I could. And so I worked on it, and again, happened to hit in the dead of the summer. It's so hot. I'm working on it with Justin, SVT. He was a huge help, and we got it all the way torn down. And we had to do a lot of research, but the more I looked, I found other things I really did not like. The direct injection was clogging up the engine really bad, and my big fear was that the cylinder deactivation, this displacement on demand with these other collapsible lifters, I was already thinking that they were going to go bad soon, and it turned out it was a regular lifter that had failed, not those. So I was already worried about it a little bit. And then having to work around everything else, I realized that, the oil pump couldn't come off and without dropping the oil pan. And the way that this simple LS engine had been redesigned made it a lot worse. And the sad fact was that this was all very common, happening to just about all of the Yukons, GM, Silverados, everything like that. So with it, again, it was one of the regular lifters that had failed. This is not a part that should fail with under 100,000 miles on it. My 2000 Silverado in the side yard has 250,000 miles, no problems, running strong. And it chewed the cam up so bad. As you can see, the camshaft had to be replaced, and that put metal shavings throughout the entire engine. So if you look on the other lobes, you see small lines too, where that metal had made its way through. So that made me very nervous, and I did the best job that I could to clean everything out. I also worried, I looked at the camshaft where its bearings were. They looked decent, but as much as I cleaned everything out and started over again, and it turned out good in the end, it was something that was still just very worrisome for me, that what happens if this all happens again, because I'm replacing them with other GM parts. So maybe more aftermarket ones would have worked, but I drove it around for another 6 months when it was completed. Everything was good. So I feel like I properly, fixed it to the best of my ability, but now it had 99,000 miles. And all of these things that had already broken, are they going to break again? I just had gotten to the end where for a family vehicle, I wanted something that was a little bit more reliable. So it was very hard because I had fixed so many things, from the headlights to the taillights to, transmission sensors, now the whole new camshaft and lifters and everything, that we decided that it was just time to move on to something that we could use for our family that was a little bit more reliable. So in the end, we decided to go with the Toyota Sequoia. And the hardest part, honestly, with me for this whole thing was that my daughter cried when we let it go. And so that was the hardest part for me, because she grew up with this. We bought this for her once we had her. So that was a very hard thing. But watch as it drives away. At least, the taillights and everything work for the next owner. So I think we really gave somebody a great car. So we test drove a Sequoia. It had about 77,000 miles on it. And, everything seemed to work perfectly. They are very loud vehicles. You can see that they definitely show their age. But we really liked this one. But I thought, even with 77,000 miles, I'm going to start as fresh as I can. So we found a 2021, which is one of the last V8s that they'll make, and it had 11,000 miles on it. So we decided to move forward with this one. Now, the thing about the Sequoia in general, as we said, it hasn't changed since 2008. So it is very outdated. They're very loud, but this is the Platinum Edition, so it's kind of the best that Toyota gets. It's hard to find, a lot of the same creature comforts on the Toyotas unless you go to the Platinum. My truck is also a Platinum, but it was really hard just to even get a DVD player, and the Platinums had that. It was hard to get a lot of other options, but in the end, I made a video that I'll put in the description that shows all of the features and kind of compares it to the Yukon a little bit. Again, I don't think it's quite as attractive as an SUV, but it's, the utility of it, I think, is a lot better. I think the quality overall is better. You can see from how they close the tailgate on it to have it gently latch rather than slam and break the taillights. To all the little things, you can see why Toyota does it the way that they do it. So in the end, we really liked the Tundra, so we went ahead and moved forward with the Sequoia as well. Now, I don't know that Toyota is going in the right direction with the V6 twin turbos and everything on their newest Sequoia, so that's why we turned that down, just because that's more components and complexity. We're very happy with this so far. The gas mileage is pretty similar to the Yukon, maybe a little bit worse. but we feel like it's going to be a very reliable, good SUV. So that's why we made the decision that we did. We'll continue to make videos on this, and the playlist is still out there for the Yukon. So feel free to ask me questions. I still have a lot of knowledge on the Yukon, and I'd be happy to help in whatever way I can. So thanks for watching. Check the video description for playlists, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thanks, guys.